So here we are with the David Leslie Memorial Trophy race. 90 minutes of sports car heaven.
David Leslie, of course, the Scottish driver who lost his life earlier this year in a private aircraft accident on the way out to do some testing. And although David had been around motorsport for 30 years, he was still highly competitive, and how appropriate that he won his last ever race here at Silverstone. And nice to see the car out in a wonderful display in the paddock here.
It's a Brit car race in the pouring rain.
Yeah,
wasn't
well,
it?
snow. In the snow. It snowed twice in that race. But also to see many of David Leslie's other cars. But now let's concentrate on the start here. They're going to go round for another lap. And
well, the cars come round to start their second green flag lap on Thursday evening here at the BRDC farm. It was the David Leslie Memorial Party. A huge guest list of the great and good of British motorsport, including the Lola that David had been campaigning recently. The weather was kind. The conversation between fellow Scots Dario Franchitti and
Helen Stewart,
Tim Harvey,
Martin Brundle there giving the eulogy,
John Cleland as well, former touring car competitors, and many people signing the Book of Remembrance. The whole evening just characterised by that's David Leslie fettling his own kart back in the day, and the whole evening characterised by the spirit and atmosphere that David would have loved.
Witnessed the early days of David, and of course his busy years of racing.
Jackie Stewart was eloquent in his praise for David, not just as a driver but as a real guiding light to young talent, and that was a worthy tribute from Sir Jackie.
David Coulthard also saying so much about the way that David helped hone the Coulthard skills. But we're back at Silverstone here.
Hamilton's front engine cars we pick up.
So here we are on this warm-up lap, or second of the warm-up laps, and there the Spice heading them round.
There's quite a big gap between the middle of the field and the back. We need to close them up a little bit.
A couple of cars here with, we've seen them at Le Mans, and you see that one weaving it with From A on the front. Now, I was at those Le Mans as you were, and I never knew what From A did until today, and I found out. It's a Japanese employment agency.
Quick look at the grid then. It's the Spice and the Nissan at the front, then the Jaguar and the Nissan. The new Jaguar for Justin Law, only the first race outing for that number 3 machine. It's an XGR 8-9, and then David Hart in the 962.
Yes, that's the front 3 rows of the grid. Henry Pearman, Mike Wiles, the McKay Ward Spice, the white Berridge Aston Martin, and then the march of Peter Schleifer, Andrew Haddon, Edwards, and the Argo.
Porsche safety car pulls off and leaves the front row to dictate the pace. Get the stopwatches ready, get 90 minutes on there, and stand by for action as we unleash the beasts of the Group C in the David Leslie Memorial Trophy race at Silverstone. The finale, the curtain, will come down at the end of this race on a tremendously successful weekend, and we've got a clean start. Thank goodness for that, as they go across the line on board with the Pink Pig. Up through the first corner, Henry Pearman takes the first stint at the wheel, and look at that array of cars, over £14 million worth of machinery.
Yeah, wonderful machinery, great memories, and they can still provide some absolutely cracking racing.
And they're still quick, Andrew, that's the thing. Down the hanger straight for the first time, and look at them spreading out. That is 170, 180 miles an hour as they break down, take another gear, turn in, feed that power back in through the right-hander at Stoke Corner.
Now, of course, we had the 30-minute sprint race yesterday, but in this race, John, and you know all about this, there's going to be a lot of tactics. There's going to be a long pit window, and in fact, the only time they can't stop is the last 10 minutes of the race.
Most of the teams I've spoken to said they'll do 30 to 40 minutes as the Jaguars get
side.
racing. And this is Justin Law defending, tries to... Oh, he's gone through! That's a tremendous piece of driving. The two Jaguars almost tripping over each other there as they came through. And this, the number 3 car of Justin Law...
Well, what a cracking driver he is, Justin Law.
Well, this car is barely sorted. Talked to Don over the weekend. They've just started campaigning this car. 44.19 up the hill at Goodwood a couple of weeks ago, which is by no means tardy.
Saw that, and he beat, of course, Anthony Reid in a Williams Formula 1 car, albeit an old one. And talking to Justin Law there, I said, Justin, you've always been in historic racing. Wouldn't you like to race modern sports cars? He said, yes, I would, but nobody's asked me.
Across the line they go then. The time in the top left. We'll periodically keep you updated with that. Remember, 90 minutes is the target time. Most of these cars 30 to 40 minutes before they'll take a splash of fuel to get them to the end of the race.
The Spice in second place. We think that Freddie Kumshick has started it. As we go looking behind Henry Pearman now.
Freddie has started that car, and he had to Martin Stretton.
Stretton drove it solo yesterday in the short race.
So Law leads.
Oh, look at that shot! Did you see the aircraft?
The Tiger Muff in the background.
Wow.
Absolutely outstanding. Only at Silverstone, ladies and gentlemen. Now there is the Aston in the background.
We haven't had a hare running across the track yet, though.
The Silverstone hare. It's a bit late in the year for the Silverstone hare. They're normally it's the springtime when they're...
No hare, but plenty of hair-raising moments, I have to say. And there we're following the Pearman car.
962s are plenty in this race, as well as Aston Martin, Spice, March, Argo, Nissan, Tiger. And here's an interesting battle between two similar liveried cars.
Yeah, same Japanese sponsor.
Andy Purdy with the Nissan version.
Peter Salby, we see there in the 83 car. The Lola built cars for Le Mans, and John, I had a ride around Donington in one of those cars. Actually, it was the yellow car. Julia Bailey at the wheel, absolutely phenomenal. Through the Craner curves, wow, and the braking just blew your mind.
That is our camera car again, the 43. It's the look at that.
Yeah.
How many times have you and I looked at pictures like this when we've been in the evening time at Le Mans?
And Pearman there in 8th place.
This car was the 89 Le Mans car, driven by Damon Hill, David Hobbs and Stephen
Ansgar. And also David Hobbs told me a very interesting story. That's one of the last Le Mans he did. He was going a bit long in the tooth, and he said that the only way he could see the gauges, because his eyesight was going a little bit, was to really force himself back in the seat so he could focus on them. Great character, David Hobbs.
Now here's a battle. This is a real battle. And through goes that 97 Andy Purdy car. That was a lovely move. He left it late. Look at the low slung wing on the back of that car. Beautiful, beautiful looking car. And now there's going to be a bit more defending, I think, by Freddie Kumshick, because he's got a whole line of cars behind him. Let's have another look, Andrew.
Here he goes, pulls out the slipstream, dives down the inside, clean move, excellent move, well done to Andy Purdy, who really hasn't got that much experience. He's come out of Porsche racing, John.
The 83 NPTI Nissan. Do you remember when they had the little taxi signs on the top to get the overall height? That was at Le Mans as well.
Tried to win Le Mans on a number of times, as did Toyota, but never did it, John.
They had to actually graft on a little bit of fiberglass on the top of the windscreen because the scrutineers at Le Mans deemed the car to be too low, and it was tacked on, and some wag put a little lamp in it and wrote taxi on the top of it. Across the line then, still with plenty of action to come. It started fast and furious as we expect, and it's going to continue just the same way. Interesting that this car is only just returning to circuit racing now, Andrew. The car that Justin has been most closely associated with in the last few years, the XGR12 Chassis 190, he won at the Le Mans Classic with it just a couple of weeks ago, and it's been retired. It will not race again.
And of course he won at the support race at Le Mans 24 Hours.
Yep.
And did you see the time he did? It
Yes.
got him halfway up the grid in the main race.
Absolutely. And the owner said, that's it, we don't need to do it anymore, let's retire it. So this car, the 8/9, again running the V12 engine, and it's just so evocative. And you know, it's 20 years since Silkcut sponsored Jaguars at Le Mans, and yet you still see people every year with the Jag Silkcut flags, their hats.
And of course, John, just a little earlier in the coverage, you saw the guy wearing the Silkcut shirt out in the crowd there.
The first year I did Radio Le Mans in '89, we were sponsored by Silkcut Jaguar, and I have a lovely sort of baseball type jacket, Silkcut Jaguar Radio Le Mans. And on high days and holidays, when I get it out and take it to Jaguar auto jumbles, when I'm looking for bits and pieces for old Jags, every time someone offers to buy it for me for an ever-increasing amount of money. And there's just such...
Well, I think you are the true anorak. Yes.
Thank you. Zit,
but
zit
you know,
right
with all that memorabilia stuff, John, the stuff I've given away.
Oh, don't.
Oh, I mean, I just tell you, it's away from the sports car races. Just a second, I had a Team Lotus jacket, black and gold, one of the few that was specially made, not with the John Player name on, because it was for the British Grand Prix. And I took that to some school fair and sold it for about £5, and it went to the school charity.
I wonder what the collective name for anoraks is. Is it a hood, a zip of
anoraks? Oh, a zip.
A zip of anoraks.
Anyway, then back to the race, eh?
The point that I was trying to make, though, is quite a serious one, is that some cars and liveries are so evocative.
Yeah.
You think of, you know, Gulf GT40s, Gulf 917 Porsches, Martini at various times, but the Silkcut Jaguar has endured.
Yeah.
Now let's have a look at some more racing.
Yeah. 77 car there, Christopher Catt in his Spice GTP lights car, which has got a 3-litre engine. So obviously he's running in a lower category.
And he is battling for 17th position with the 81 car that is just ahead of him. So that is a battle for position as they come across the line in front of us, just proving that you don't have to be right at the front of the field to be enjoying yourself. Just over an hour and 11 minutes still to go. Oh, no, I don't believe it. It looks like Andy Purdy's got a problem. Is it a right rear puncture?
Sort of shot we've seen on Le Mans many times.
Yes, it is. Look at the front left wheel dangling.
That car is really stiff, isn't it? That's why it's doing that. And
well, the good news is he can get it back to the pits.
Yeah, is he doing damage to the bottom of the gearbox? I don't think so.
Well, it's not doing any good to the suspension.
That tyre delaminates and will start flailing around and breaking the rear bodywork. I mean, something we've seen many times in endurance sports car racing.
Might be tempted to take the shortcut into the pit lane, Andy, if you can.
Yeah.
He'll get in. It may be a tad early for that car to fuel now and get through to the end of the race. The pit stop window is
lined up,
he's right on the racing line now. That is a bit naughty.
Yeah, well,
yellow flags are out, of course, and no one's sure whether to go by or not. The pit stop window is any time bar the last 10 minutes of the race, so he can come in. The question is, can they get enough fuel into it to get it to the end of the race? And indeed, the Master is following him in. The door is open because he's got all kinds of fumes in that car. He probably can't see or breathe for the smoke. Oh, there it is. It's delaminating.
Well, it's just come off as a complete piece, hasn't it?
At least it came off in one piece.
Yeah.
Down into the pit lane.
And of course, it's always difficult to brake at this point.
He's done quite a good job. There was a bit of bodywork came off, but other than that, he's been pretty lucky, I think, to get that car back. Toby.
John, sorry Andrew to jump in. I've been speaking with the guy. He's a great friend of mine. He's just rebuilt this car on behalf of Charlie Ag. What he was telling me over the lunch break, guys, was that the Nissans do go further than the big V12s and the big bangers on fuel. The problem is they will only do about 50 minutes, whereas the big bangers, they can always guzzle fuel. If they put fuel in this car now, it won't get to the end of the race, so they're going to have to double stop.
Yes.
Now, as you mentioned probably earlier, John, they are only allowed to use contemporary equipment to refuel the car. They've got the fuel high up. They haven't got the tanks that they can put over their shoulder. They're not man-carried tanks. They're the give us the name, the fuel that's up on the stand.
On the rig, yeah.
And you know, you still have to be a strong lad to put the fuel in, but they do go further because the electronics were in the early stages of development with the
that's the leader. That's Justin Lloyd. He's got a left rear puncture or suspension problem at stall, and that is very scary indeed. Let's have a look at it as he pulls off. Is there a problem with that left rear tyre? Yes, he's got a puncture. That car is wallowing.
Now this is worrying, John, because we've had 2 punctures in the space of a lap, ladies and gentlemen.
Opposite
this
side
is big,
tyres, though.
Worried, yes, but the thing is with Law, I caught up with him over the lunch break when I came out the box, is that he's doing nearly, as you said earlier, John, 180 miles an hour down that straight. And the thing with Law is, it might be the other side of the car, John, but he's been going the quickest.
That is true. It is the left rear tyre. Now this car ran with spats in this configuration in its time, and it was only when who was it who went off there? It was Massa who went off in the Ferrari a few weeks ago at the British Grand Prix.
The other thing about the yellow Nissan is when Charlie Agg drove that car last year at Monza, even with full downforce, this is the car that I'm talking about now. Charlie Agg used to run this car. This did near half a mile an hour, under 200 miles an hour, with full downforce. You were talking about the downforce being produced at the rear wing.
That's Don Law's pit. That's Justin Law. He'll be coming into that pit in a moment. It's going to be a pair of rear tyres. I think it's a bit early for Andy Wallace to get in that car.
But Justin, as you may have said earlier, John, is driving 2 cars in this race. He's got to come in reasonably early, but he was telling me that he's going to plan to come in and literally change out of this car and jump into the number 33 Nick Reaney car, literally in the space of minutes. So now their plan for the whole driver in one car, driver in the other car, has now gone to pot with regard to Law.
And look at that little bit of suspension, a little bit of bodywork damage on the right rear. And here is Justin Law, the erstwhile leader, into the pit lane. He's done a cracking job to get that back. Here is the new leader. This is Chris Bungham in the Ford Jaguar. This is the XGR11, the Derek Hood owned car, the JD Classics man. Wasted the World Sports Car Championship in 89 and 90 by Andy Wallace and Jan Lammers, and the leader then is still a Silverstone Jaguar, but it's the number 4 car of Chris Bungham.
It's within 10 seconds ahead of the second car at the moment, John. That is the 1990 Nissan, which has got Sowerby at the wheel at the moment. Callum Lockie will be jumping into the car, the Scot jumping into the car after the pit stop. So the leader is just coming through here. 10 seconds behind him is the Sowerby blue and white Unicea car, the one with the taxi top that you were talking about. And then, of course, in third at the moment, we've got the white Kumshick Stretton combination in the white Spice.
And they're another 24 seconds in arrears. But we still have the best part of the top 10 on the lead lap. Now here is that second place car coming through with just over an hour to go.
And interestingly, that Bungham car in the lead was going to be driven by Gary Pearson, but Gary fell in the workshop on Wednesday. He's
broken a rib.
He'd broken a rib. He was in absolute agony yesterday, and he just can't get his belts done up tight enough.
They've left him on the driver and roster.
I don't think he'll get in there.
I don't think he will, but just in case Chris can't do the whole race, he might jump in and do a little at the end. But I've driven karts with a broken rib before.
It's not nice.
And frankly, even getting in and out of the bath with a broken rib is not particularly nice. But that is a good-looking car. This is, as I say, the 89-90 spec car. Now, watch bodywork. Let's have a little look there. Oh, and that is...
What was that went flying?
That was a piece of rear bodywork on the 36. That's the Robin Ward-driven Spice, the CBA-sponsored car.
Yeah, that's one with the Cosworth TFE in the back, I think.
Now there is Justin Law's car back out and on the circuit. That was a very quick turnaround by the Dunlaw Racing mechanics. They do know their stuff, and it looks to me as though they have left. If we see the other side, the spat is off on the far side. Let's see that as it comes down towards us this time. They have left off the left side spat. Now that is quite an interesting decision. Can only think there was a bit of damage on that from the blowout. Now, where has that car dropped down to? Has dropped down to 9th position, but 2 laps away from the leader.
Young Chris Buncombe then in the lead at the moment. And there the Jaguar making up some time.
Across the line.
Now, what we didn't see, John, let's try and look at the crash helmet, see if we can see a white helmet with an AW on the front of it.
That's not Andy's, it is not Andy, it is still Justin Law. Let's have a word with Diana and see if she can give us some news on that number 3 Wallace and Law car. Diana.
Thank you, John. Yes, difficult to hear down here, but I've got Andy Wallace with me now. Justin's had to come in and make an unscheduled pit stop because of that flat tyre, and obviously that's scuppered your plans a bit.
Well, it has a bit, but I have to say what a fantastic job he was doing at the front of the field there, just gently pulling away. Makes it look easy, doesn't he? He's a superb driver, he really is. That's
such a shame, isn't it? All that hard work. But, I mean, obviously, we've still got an hour to go. Anything can happen from here.
Well, they can, and, you know, these cars are 20 years or so old, and it is a long race, so we're not going to give up. We're just going to keep going till the end.
It was a very quick stop.
Yeah, it was relatively quick, but the 3 cars have had a puncture now, so there must be something somewhere that's causing this. But hopefully, if he gets a good run now up to the fuel stop, I shall jump in and I shall pedal as hard as I can.
All right, Andy, thanks ever so much. Back to you, John.
So just on an hour and 2 minutes still to run. The mighty Mazda running nicely, and there is car number 12 going through, Andrew Haddon,
yep,
in the Spice. And back to the other car that's had the puncture. That's the Nissan going through with Andy Purdy on board.
That's back up to speed.
He's lost more time.
Yes, he did.
Than
He's right down to 19th place, John.
Yeah, now that was interesting because it happened further around the track, but I think they had to do a little more work on the right rear bodywork than Don Law's mechanics did on the left rear of Justin's car, despite Justin having to tour in a little bit because he was further up the field as well to start with and further ahead of the rest of the field. But you can just see
damage at the rear. Look, they tried to get the old tank tape on, but I don't think it's completely worked, and that's going to disturb the aerodynamics a little bit.
Well, that happened right at the end when he was actually coming into the pit lane, when the whole carcass of the tyre peeled off the racing rim and rolled away, and it just pinged off a thin sliver of that rear fender. Now there's Martin Stretton waiting to find out what his car's fate is. He's looking for the number 11, which is in 4th place at the moment, 49 seconds off the lead.
I think we could see Stretton really wringing the neck of that car.
Terrible for the car concerned in terms of Justin Law, but what a great battle we are now going to have with Law blasting back up through the field, with Martin Stretton jumping in the 4th place car at 50 seconds or maybe a minute back of the leaders. There is that car that he'll jump into. This is the car that Stretton will jump into when Freddie Kumshick has decided that he has played enough with the appropriately logoed Toy Store car. And Sarah Lee, as it ran in period, of course.
Yeah, a thumping great 6.5 litre motor in the back.
That's enough, isn't it?
Yeah, that's enough. And Sarah Lee, of course, made cake mixes, American sponsor. Don't know how they pulled that one off.
Down through the chicane and back towards us. And there's Callum Lockie looking very relaxed. Former British GT champion.
Man who raced a McLaren for a while. McLaren F1, that is. And now one of the stars of Rick Carr as the number 3 car comes in.
Back in. Now this is the Justin Law car, and I wonder whether
it's just, I think this time.
Has he just done it? No, there's
smoke. Well, that's from the brakes.
Brakes heating up.
Yeah.
That's the heat sinking back in the brakes. The doors come open. There was a wave of the hand, almost a dismissive wave of the hand by the mechanic who was nearest to the front of that car.
Maybe Diana can leg it up there and find out what the story is.
Justin hasn't got out. Refire it, mate. No. Yes. Maybe. I did not see Wallace get in that car.
No, he didn't. He didn't.
And look at the steam and the smoke coming off those brakes. Off he goes.
Well, there's obviously a problem there, John, and I'm sure Di will find out what was happening. But I think
he's going to lose another lap if he's not.
I think you could say that challenge is now very much blunted.
We should mention that the Callum Lockie was waiting for the 2nd place car, by the way. He's due to get into that 83 car, the Sowerby car. which
Now.
is catching the leader. Just under 7 seconds between this car, your leader, the Chris Buncombe machine. This is the XJR 11. And in second place, let's look back. He's not quite there yet.
Not in the picture yet.
No, and he's got to now. Is that a slow lap? No, it's just another 10th off, 6.8 seconds by the 83 car. So traffic playing its part, as you would expect in a sports car race. That's what it's about. David Hart in the 962 from a Porsche is in third place, ahead of Kumshick in that 11, that white car that we were looking at earlier on. Then in fifth position, the 36 car of Robin Ward in the Spice. There's the second place car.
And there's the Group 44 car being passed.
Now that's
earlier Jaguar, of course.
That's the XJR 5. Donald Miles driving that, and my mate David Upton from Leicester will be jumping into that car. David, who used to have a lovely XJ12 coupe Jaguar race car that he won the Jaguar Club events with.
John Toby's got to jump in here now.
So thanks for the moment to Andrew Marriott as we welcome back into the commentary booth Toby Moody. Is this good enough for you, Toby?
Oh, it's brilliant. I'm absolutely enthralled by this race. It's absolutely got under my skin. Now then, Peter Sowerby, he's only 7 seconds off the lead. A hugely historic car, this sister car to, of course, the legendary Mark Blundell car that set pole position at Le Mans in 1990. 6 seconds faster than anybody else. You and I both were at Le Mans this year, John, and we saw that Peugeot go around, what was it, nearly 4 seconds faster at one point than the Audis. But of course, it's the hare and the tortoise factor. Things never change at Le Mans, do they? From Aston Martin DBR1s all the way through to today. Early days of turbo data logging and computers and electronic technology in these cars. This has still got the same very basic data logging and programming in this ECU, and so much so they haven't got a computer that can read the old data.
The old code.
It's exactly the same system. This is the same engine in the back of this car that was last driven at Daytona.
Oh, look how close that is. Held up, but forced his way through there. Nicely done.
He got through the back markers. It's the same engine that crashed at Daytona in '92. It went back to Japan. It's come back. It hasn't even had the heads off.
They built them tough in those days. You make me laugh actually talking about data acquisition in '89. We should have had the Sauber Mercedes here this weekend. Was involved in a crash in the sprint race yesterday. In 1989, one of the sponsors, as we're looking at more action as the 87 car comes back up through the 97 car rather comes back up through the field. This is the Purdy car in 12th position. In '89, the Mercedes sponsor, sole sponsor, was AEG, and the only reason they were on the wing end plates of the car, the rear wing end plates, was because they owned satellites, and what they were doing were bouncing signals from the car to a satellite and then back to the Mercedes factory so that the engine and the engineers could get data, and they actually moved a satellite in its orbit so they could do that. I once spoke to one of the program managers. He said, we had a notion of budget, but it didn't have a cap on it. That's what Mercedes were doing in '89. Let's go back to the 43 Porsche 962. 7th position for Henry now, and this has been a very, very good drive indeed.
And it gives you, John, some idea of what it's like inside these cars. I mean, Rob will attest to this in a moment's time. You know, all the muck and bullets, all the midges at this time of night, all the bits of oil, bits of rubber, of course. We've had 2 tyre blow-ups already here at Silverstone. It may be the modern Silverstone is a little bit slower rather than the early 70s big booming circuit, but it's still quick. These cars, as you well know, John, you've really got to take a deep breath and hang on. Justin Law, probably that's why the reason that these brakes have been smoking when Justin Law came into the pits is that he's absolutely thrashing the car as quick, if not quicker, than your everyday professional driver.
I think you're absolutely right there. Let's just look. That is the car that he's battling with for position. This is the 12 car of Andrew Haddon in the Spice SE90. As he is going through 6th position here. That's the 6th car. 7th is our camera car, and it is gaining and gaining and gaining inexorably. And this has been a great drive by Henry, and any second now Andrew is going to have to do a little bit of defending. Just over 53 minutes to go. We are starting to come down to a full tank of fuel to the end. A couple of little wires hanging down at the back as if the fog lights have fallen off or something similar. Seem to be slowing that car down. Look at that Porsche, absolutely gorgeous. There is the Advan car. That's the 7 machine, isn't it? The Mark Sumter machine. And that car, I think, has only ever been raced once outside of Japan before it came here this weekend.
.52 minutes remaining in this 90-minute race here at Silverstone. This is the David Leslie Memorial Trophy race for Group C cars, 1985 to 1990. Just to explain the situation, Justin Law streaked ahead at the beginning of the race, but there was a puncture and he's had to come into the pits actually twice. Also, the Purdy yellow Nissan, the From A Nissan that was going so well in second position, that also had a puncture. It's come into the pits, but it is the fastest car on the racetrack. Therefore, this is the leader. This is Chris Buncombe. He comes across the line to complete lap 22 as we have 51 minutes remaining. His lead over the Sowerby and soon-to-be Callum Lockie Nissan is about 10 seconds. Rob Bath.
Hi Toby, thank you very much. Yeah, looking at Chris Buncombe, he's lapping very, very quick and consistently. His last few laps have been within half a second of each other, so the pressure will be on Callum Lockie when he climbs into his car in the second position, just to see if he can make any headway into that 12-second lead. Refueling going on in the pit lane, one man putting in the fuel there on one side, one man venting the fumes out. Obviously the fuel goes in quicker if you're venting.
Now then, there is your second place man car, Peter Sowerby in this. Such, of course, was the technological push that Nissan put into Le Mans, just as all of the Japanese have, of course. Only Mazda being victorious with the Herbert car, with the rotary car, but it's got electric mirrors. There's a little switch, probably from a very basic 1.1 Nissan Micra, just on the left-hand side, and you can alter the mirrors just in case they get damaged. Now then, this is interesting. This is the Nick Reaney car. It's come into the pits. It's got a little bit of damage, or it's picked up something on the left-hand side. Now, Justin Law is going to be the second driver in this car, but the problem is Justin Law is still out on the racetrack.
He is. That's coming from 10th place. That looks to be just a little bit of debris on the back of the front wheel arch there, Toby. Just a bit of aluminium heat shield it looks to have picked up. But yeah, he's coming from 10th. As you say, his co-driver wasn't there, wasn't ready.
Now then, here is the other Nissan. This is the Momo car. It was actually one of the cars that was built in 1987, but it was modified to a later specification later on. It's got a V6 stop block, and there's something coming off the back of that car as well. Hopefully that wasn't a piece of rubber coming off the rear of that red Nissan. It was completely re-engineered. It was a very basic turbo car. Pretty as well, I have to say, as John and Andrew were mentioning earlier, reminiscent of the 333 Ferrari in the 90s. I think he's got a problem because he's slowing immediately, Rob.
Yes, you can see his pace. The body language of the car doesn't look very comfortable, and yes, as we saw him come down the Hangar Straight, there were big lumps of pickup coming out of the wheel arches, as if possibly he'd been offline somewhere, picked up rubber onto the face of the tyre, and that's affecting his cornering performance. But yeah, he's not looking terribly happy, and there is he, Toby.
No, not indeed, not indeed. You rather suspect that he's going to be coming in. Let's just recap from the top. Buncombe still leads, but he's extending his lead. He's gone on that lap, Rob, 1.1 quicker than Sowerby.
Yes, Buncombe's still within that half a second zone of his best lap, so very quick, very consistent stuff from Chris Buncombe.
We haven't seen much of David Hart. He's the Dutchman who's driving not only the From A yellow Porsche 962, but he's also driving here this weekend a Ferrari 512. He drove that here 24 hours ago as the sun set here over Silverstone. But there's your Nissan. That's the early Momo car, NPTI, Nissan Performance Technology Incorporated. It was the American arm of NME, which was Nissan Motorsports Europe, which ran things from this side of the Atlantic, and they of course were based just down the road in Milton Keynes. Here though is Freddie Kumshick. He's in fourth at the moment.
He is. He's pushing very hard, coming through the centre part of Beckett's there, coming out onto the hanger straight in traffic. He's running right the way out onto the grasscrete on the outside, actually beyond the white lines through some of the quicker corners. You can use the extra little bit of runoff. Just had a sort of quick theory regarding the pit stops. I think the Aston Martin was the first to come in and make their driver change in the allocated pit stop window. That's Bob Berridge, vastly experienced driver, getting in that car. And there's another vastly experienced driver, Martin Stretton, waiting to get aboard Freddie Kumshick's car in 4th position. That's the car we're looking at here, the car 11 coming through Club now.
Now then, as they come out of Club and up towards Abbey, Buncombe continues to lead. He's put another half a second into Peter Sowerby, but Callum Lockie will be relishing the chance to get in the car. There is Martin Stretton. Of course, the hands device used all through motorsport, not just Formula One, not just in America, but it has cascaded down now into Club Motorsport. And of course, the hands device inventors and manufacturers being awarded an award at the Autosport Awards last December.
Yes, I raced in Daytona when it was the first ever race for the hands device, and although we found it a little bit cumbersome, clearly there's massive safety benefits to that. And of course, making the driver change with these Group C sports cars as the driver comes into the pit lane now, Freddie Kumshick from 4th. The apertures, the door apertures are quite small, so when you have got the hands device on, it can make it a little tricky trying to twist down into the car. So we'll have to see whether Martin Stretton has any problems climbing on board.
And there's not only, it's difficult to get in because you might have a lanky frame or a difficult frame to physically get in the car, but there's some areas of the car that you physically can't stand on. Behind the front wheels, they're part of the aerodynamics.
Very much so. You can see the grills, the louvers over the front wheels. You can't go anywhere near those. They're very, very lightweight. We actually saw Robin Ward's car on the hanger straight lose one earlier. It was taken out by a big lump of rubber coming up off the tyre. And oh, is that trouble there in the pit stop?
No, don't worry, Rob. What the rules are, it's a 4-minute stop.
Yes,
the driver
sorry.
comes out, then they have to shut the door, then the fuel goes in. There has to be a man with a fire extinguisher, and there also has to be a dead man's handle, chap with a white helmet on the right hand side of your screen, so he can shut off the fuel if there is, God forbid, a problem. Then the flow rate might be, I don't know, 85 litres per second. So it takes about 35 seconds to refuel the car. Then, and only then, have you then got 4 guys able to touch the car, service it, clean the windscreen, put on some new tyres, and then the driver can go in, as we've got Mike Wilds going in the Pearman car. This, of course, the pink Porsche, Rob.
Mike Wilds, a driver with vast array of experience, 8 times Le Mans driver. He's raced in Formula One for 2 years and also has 7,000 hours of helicopter instruction on his business card. So massive amount of experience from Mike Wilds. I know he's been very much looking forward to this opportunity, and having 45 minutes in a Group C sports car around Silverstone, you can't blame him.
Certainly not. It's going to be very difficult indeed in there. Now, because they're obviously putting Mike in the car, they've put the fuel in, they've made sure everything is tip-top, and that looks like Stretton's seat being positioned in position. Don't forget that some of these guys are using literally a wet towel or a wet blanket just to lap up any spilt bits of fuel, because it's very hot here. You don't want any spilt fuel at all, Rob. Remember that Benetton fire at Hockenheim? Oh, and there's the leader in. There's the leader in. Remember the Benetton fire at Hockenheim with Verstappen? That was only 3 litres of fuel.
Yeah, 3 litres of fuel and fuel vapour. So as we look at the picture here, the vent man is on the right-hand side. The fuel man is on the left. He's already got 20 litres into the car. He's going to pick up another 20 litres. There he is. Bang, in it goes. Just watch the fuel level drop in the churn. Martin Stretton climbing upon the number 11 car. That's still in 4th position, cleaning the windscreen, fixing the seatbelts over the hands device. So still no hurry here. Remember, we have 4 minutes time that the car has to remain stationary. So further down the end of the pit lane in the pink car, that's Mike Wilds. That's the car with our onboard camera. There's Mike with a very distinctive yellow crash helmet. Ex-teammate of David Leslie's at RML, only fitting as this is the David Leslie Memorial Trophy.
Good spot, and we are now having the kind of view that Mike Wilds has got out of the front of that Porsche. It is absolutely original. The paintwork with the Japanese graphics on the side have almost been polished off as the car has been looked after. As John said earlier, ex-Damon Hill car. Not a lot of people know that Damon Hill drove at Le Mans. Not a lot of people know that Johnny Herbert won Le Mans, nor Eddie Irvine. It's always a good pub spot quiz question, isn't it? Always a good one. Now then, We are waiting for the 4 minutes to be up, but of course, Rob, it's a safety aspect, 4 minutes.
Yes, very much so, very much so. Many of the pit stops here at Silverstone this weekend have had a timed element to them, just to reduce the amount of rush, to make sure that everything is done properly. And through on the lead and on the monitor now, coming into Woodcote Corner, is our leader, Peter Sowerby. He crosses the line, comes across to then come down into Copse Corner to take the lead.
He now leads this race. Many of the people, of course, have been into the pits, and now we've got Mike Wilds out of the pits with the Porsche 962. Let's just ride with him. Of course, it may well be right-hand drive, but it's right-hand gear change as well.
Yes, very much so. Right-hand gear change just to allow the linkage to run in its line of least resistance. With the cars in the central fuel tank, it was difficult in those days to route the linkage back there. And Mike, I've already said he's got vast experience, a BRDC member, so one of the custodians of the circuit here at Silverstone. And with 42 minutes remaining, it'll be interesting to see if Mike can make his way up the order any further than that car already is. At the moment, he's down in 9th position. That's Buncombe in the pits from 2nd position now.
He's still waiting for his 4 minutes to be up, so Chris has actually got out of the car, then they've shut the door and refueled it, and now he's got back in the car. Here, though, is Martin Stretton, winner of the shorter race yesterday.
Yes, Stretton in the middle of Beckett's already. You can see he's working away hard at the steering wheel, so Stretton pushing that car right the way from the outset.
Now, as he comes down the back section, we're going to have to wait for a couple of laps for this to shake out, but technically Sowerby is continuing to lead this race here at Silverstone. There he is on the racetrack, one of the Nissans that ran at Le Mans in 1990, and he does another lap. Now then, the other thing that's going to be difficult for these guys, Rob, is the sheer amount of physical strain on their bodies. There is no massive amount of airflow in these cars, and they're really going to be breathing temperatures of air, oh no, pick a figure, 55 degrees Celsius, 60 degrees Celsius.
Yes, very much so. It's very hot out there. That man there stretching his hands, Callum Lockie, getting ready to climb aboard. He'll have made sure his fluid level is up. As you've mentioned, they're very hot and they are very difficult to drive. Limited amounts of power steering in these cars, and with the big, fast sweeping corners at Silverstone, high G loadings.
Now then, as the leader comes down towards our camera at Stowe, just continuing to talk about cockpit temperatures, the Purdy car, that's the yellow Nissan that had the first of our 2 punctures, that has actually got an onboard cooling air system. They put dry ice in it and it pumps air towards the driver, towards the front of his chin bar of his crash helmet. That must be like night and day for the drivers. You must come out sopping wet.
They don't tend to last very long, though, these cooling systems. From a driver's perspective, they're great for just a few minutes, but then the dry ice runs out or your refrigerated water starts to become slightly warm. I raced in Brazil last year. It was lovely for half an hour, and then I had like warm water being pumped around my suit, and I checked the temperature after the race and it was red hot. It's like, okay, ice and I now see. So
the Momo Nissan just being pulled off the racetrack on the way into the infield area. So the Momo Nissan has got a problem. The V6 machine, the turbo car, having a problem as the leader is starting another lap here at Silverstone. Number 83, the Nissan of Peter Sowerby. He raced already today here at Silverstone. He raced in one of the 1981 Williamses in the FIA historic Formula 1 race, and he will be a very, very tired bunny by the end of the day. There is the aforementioned Nissan. It's come to a, well, not quite a grinding halt, but a bit of a slow, sad halt as it gets pushed away towards the support race pits.
Yes, that's just before Priory, so there'll be a yellow flag right on the edge of Bridge Corner, which will limit overtaking into Priory, but yeah, a place of comparative safety. Peter Sowerby, though, as you say, really has worked hard today. Formula 1 car, Group C sports car, he is living the dream. Mike Wilds, another man pushing hard. He's lapping very quickly and consistently. Just look how hard he's working behind the wheel.
They have to give them a big steering wheel just to hang on.
They do, particularly at the quicker corners. There's lots of steering input required. Following him down the hangar straight, you can see the front of the car bobbling up and down.
And the other thing that is, we mustn't forget about this David Leslie Memorial race here at Silverstone is that the pink Porsche that we were riding on board with Mike Wiles, of course, a former Richard Lloyd racing car. Now then, the leader of the cars that have not stopped is still, of course, Peter Sowerby, because he leads this race. The leader of the cars who have stopped is this car here, we believe. No. Maybe the Buncombe car. Well, let's just wait for him to get over the line. So yes, this is the car that has stopped and gone back out again, Chris Buncombe. So he's going to be very strong by the time things shake out. Still, we need to keep an eye on Sowerby and Lockie, and Sowerby is in the pits. Sowerby's in the pits, so Callum Lockie, his heart will be beating, and we've got 37.5 minutes remaining here, and now we start the clock. 4 minutes starting now, Rob.
Okay, so the watch has started. Driver's door opens, driver gets out, and then they'll close the door and plug in for fuel. So all nice and relaxed. As we've said, Toby, there's no rush. This is just for safety reasons. There's so much fuel knocking around the pit lane, we cannot take any chances. So these guys using the 200-litre fuel dump churn. One of those hoses is to let the fuel in. One of the hoses to let the fuel out. The dead man opens the handle. You can see the fuel flow down the hose, and it's coming into the car now. As you say, flowing in, taking on board about 85 litres. Should be taking about half a minute then to get all that fuel on board.
And they've actually nicked a towel out of the hotel. I hope the hotel manager is not listening, but they've actually nicked a towel out of the hotel, doused it in water, just in case there is a very small amount of fuel dropping out of the end of that hose, dropping on the bodywork, because right underneath the bodywork, right underneath the filler, and don't forget it is, of course, a Daytona filler, it's on the left-hand side of the car, is, of course, the turbo running at about 1,000,000 degrees Celsius. It's hotter than the centre of the sun, I would imagine.
Yeah, the two things that don't go well together are fuel and turbocharger. You've got the exhaust down there as well, Toby. And coming out of club, wow, just look at that. Two silk-cut Jaguars running together almost nose to tail as they come down towards Abbey.
Well, we've got the silk-cut Jaguars here. It's a shame that we haven't quite got a Rothmans Porsche. There is a Shell Dower Porsche, or a Porsche in the pits. Very evocative colour schemes, as John was saying earlier, and still very much part of British motor racing folklore on the other side of the channel.
So I think that might be Andy Wallace now at the wheel of number 3. That's the first car that we're looking at, the one with the yellow highlights on. Just waiting for a cutaway to the car so we can get a little bit closer. Andy has a very distinctive crash helmet with a red and blue logo on the front.
Yeah, and he's got, it's Andrew Marriott back on the commentary. He's got the AW built into that special swirly stripe on his crash helmet. So the two Jaguars running together here. But two different engines, one with a V12 screaming away and one with a V6, and even in the commentary box we've got double glazing. We can hear the difference in the sound of those cars as they come by, but I think not only myself but all my colleagues prefer the V12.
The V12, both in the back of the sports car and the back of a Formula One, was always a hugely evocative, very, very distinctive noise. And wow, look at this. We've got Mike Wiles, we've got Andy Wallace. There's just legends everywhere you look. Fever.
Yeah, Fever. And Mike Wiles, of course, is no. Now, I ran Mike Wiles, or no, I didn't quite run Mike Wiles in a Formula 3 car in 1970. That tells how old he is these days. Still flies a great helicopter, as you said, Rob. But these... see the evolution also of the logo silk cut, and there's another car which isn't racing today, which is in the paddock display for the great David Leslie, is in the total purple colour scheme, 2 shades of purple. Bit of that oil dry being kicked up here. But Sowerby and Lockie in the lead at the moment. This race is shaking out at the moment because of the pit stops, as always happens in these endurance races. About 34 minutes to go, and then we'll get the feel probably in about 10 minutes time about where it's really going, and just trying to look at some of the lap times now. And I think that Buncombe is still going very strongly in this car, because Buncombe knows the track conditions. He's been in the car for the whole period, Robert, so he's into the swing of things. The adrenaline's going and he's in the rhythm. There's the 83 car, which is currently in the pits, going through its pit stop.
The 83 car just waiting for the 4 minutes to tick down. Like you say, Buncombe is in a rhythm.
How frustrating is that? And also we'll be watching the speed of the Stretton car. Martin Stretton just did a 1:44.664. So Stretton certainly pushing that car hard, going perhaps a little bit quicker than its owner, Freddie Kumshick, did. But as we say, this race in a very fascinating stage at the moment. These two Jaguars running at the same pace, as you can see.
Similar pace, not quite the same pace.
Yeah.
Very interesting to see that old age and treachery is outweighing youth and skill at the moment.
Yeah.
Andy Wallace is starting to stretch his legs, and it'll be very interesting to see how quickly this man, Callum Lockie, can get into his stride.
Yeah.
That 83 car still leads, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about Andy Wallace, I said a little earlier, is he's been racing sports cars at the top level now for 25 years continuously. He's right on his game still, the man originally from Oxford. But love to see these Nissans racing again. And this Group C race has been one of the highlights of this wonderful Silverstone Classic meeting for us. And we've had so much racing here, but this race, absolutely superb.
Phenomenal to see the fight being taken to the Jaguars from the Nissan as well. Yes, it's a lovely car. Yes, it's out here competing, but it's here competing for the victory. It's taking the fight to them. Great stuff.
Yeah, of course, that turbocharger will wind the horsepower up to the best part of 1,000 if you want for qualifying. That's what they did at Le Mans, that famous Mark Blundell lap.
So riding with Callum as he comes underneath the Daily Express Bridge, up into the complex now, around the blind left-hander at Priory, using lots of the curb on the inside. That's the correct line. Then going in early on the brakes. There's lots of grip on the inside. Just got to be careful of that oil low, Callum.
Yeah, you saw how the car twitched then. Just there isn't the same level of grip there, and it snatched back as it got grip again.
And of course, Callum is doing equations in his mind. He's driven this car before here at Silverstone, but he hasn't driven it this afternoon here at Silverstone. I was out on the circuit earlier, and the circuit's almost like a wild animal. It's evolving all the time. It's changing. There's oil dry on places. There's moisture down in other places that almost change lap by lap, Andrew.
Particularly at a meeting like this, where there's a lot of old cars, a lot more oil down than you normally have. You've just got to pay attention all the time.
Yes, and that's why this man, Chris Buncombe, is going so well. As you mentioned earlier, he's been out from the start of the race, and he's watched the circuit change, whereas Callum Lockie has had to come into it fresh. Yes, he's going to take a couple laps just to get up there. So as the pit stop window is now unwinding, Buncombe leads, Lockie second, with Hart third.
Just looking at the respective lap times, I think the fastest man out there at the moment is Andy Wallace, as John Hindhoff rejoins me.
I'm reminded of the 1990 Le Mans, something that Rob Barth said there about the Nissan taking the battle to the Silverstone Jaguars. It was exactly that story in 1990. The MPTI cars running the Jags close for 14 or 15 hours. They had the fastest race lap, and it was only in the last portion of the race that the Jaguars held sway and took that very, very emotional victory. Half an hour to go here at the David Leslie Memorial Trophy here at Silverstone. Now there is Andy Wallace carving his way through traffic, reacquainting himself with a silk-cut Jaguar. Behind him is Chris Buncombe, but he's ahead on the road by almost a full lap.
And there, that Jaguar with the wheel spat missing now, John. And of course that was part of the question about the reason why he's behind now after that puncture.
You've got to think that that car would have been in really good shape to be leading this race had Justin Law not had that problem with the tyre earlier on, and Buncombe beginning to close in and put another lap on it.
And that later Jaguar doesn't have the wheel spats because they were just too fiddly to take off at pit stops.
Correct.
So they discarded that idea, made them a little bit more aerodynamic, but there was too much fiddling around with them.
Well, actually, that car at Le Mans would have run with the spats. They're running them without here because they're running in the sprint formula. And if you look at the decals, actually,
Purdy's time, look at Andy Purdy's time, 1:40.608. Purdy is absolutely flying round here.
and remember, he has also done the whole race on his own so far.
He's down in ninth at the moment, John. He's got work to do.
He has, but he wouldn't put it past him.
Yeah, that's the fastest lap we've had thus far.
Justin Law's done a cracking first stint. He expected to drive 2 cars, but instead he gets to talk to Diana Binks.
Hello. Yeah, I can hear. I've got Justin with me. Okay, Justin, what happened out there? Obviously, we saw you had a puncture and had to come in.
Yeah, end of the main straight, had a puncture. Just about managed to hang on to it and crawled it back to the pits. And then we got to stop go in the pit lane, so we're spinning the wheels, apparently.
That was such a shame because you had a really good start, didn't you?
Yeah, it wasn't easy out there. It was very slippy, and you know the Jag's a heavy old car, and it was on edge the whole time. So I'm really disappointed that we got put back so far, but I think Andy's doing a fair job out there at the moment, so we'll see what happens.
All right, thanks, Justin.
Thank you.
That was the second stop then.
Yeah, for spinning the tyres as he went out. Well, that's a sort of Le Mans rule, isn't it?
It is very much so.
It wasn't a rule in those days when those cars were new.
Now that is the incident that Justin was talking about. 180 miles an hour, brake for the corner. Oh dear, I have no left rear tyre.
Yes. No wonder he's a little red in the face when Diana interviewed him.
Can I just mention, however, a lot of people criticise Grand Prix circuits for how far the walls are away, but the tarmac runoff area and the wall being back saved that car from damage. He was able to get the car slowed down. So, gone are the days, thank goodness, of catch fencing and things like that. And gravel traps often don't really do anything, and he was able to get that car back without bringing out a safety car.
Another fast lap from Purdy down in the 141s. Bunkum, Lockie, Hart, well, Bunkum and Lockie doing 144. So by far the fastest car out there. John, is that Nissan?
Just does take
Purdy
me back to 1990. Bunkum still leading then in this Silk Cut Jaguar. There is Martin Stretton. And that is a change of position for third position there, as Stretton goes through into third ahead of Hart in that From Air machine. So Martin Stretton, who's had a cracking weekend, we're going to have to rename it the Martin Stretton Festival if he keeps getting on the podium as many times as this.
There is Purdy though. Oh, that's Hart.
That's Hart.
Yeah,
that's Hart.
Yeah.
Hart in the Porsche, the two From Air cars. Very similar livery, the Nissan with a little more black around the front end and no headlights, which won't be a problem because we'll be finishing before darkness here. That Porsche, difficult for me to remember that car running in that livery actually. I always remember the Nissan rather than the Porsche.
This car I think ran in the red, white and blue for its earlier Le Mans appearances, and I think in the last year ran in this colour scheme.
Ran in Japan quite a lot in that colour scheme.
Yeah, had a big
well.
endurance championship in Japan as well.
And that car was immensely successful in 88 and 89, winning at Fuji in the 500Ks and the 500-mile race, and Suzuka in the 1000Ks, and then repeated its win at Fuji in 89. Now let's have a look at some more battles further down the field and down the order. He's Stretton just carving his way past more of the back markers. I'm also looking at Bob Burridge. Bob Burridge's times, he's got himself up to 7th position in the Aston Martin 18 that we looked at earlier on. Andy Wallace, a 43 last time around.
And down in 9th place, Duncan Mackay and Robin Ward in their Spice SE88. That's a 3.5 litre car leading that class at the moment. Haven't seen much of them.
There's the Richard Lloyd racing car with Mike Wilds on board, and the reason that Toby mentioned earlier on that it was significant that, of course, Richard Lloyd was sadly killed in the same plane crash that claimed the life of David Leslie, for whom this race is named.
Now look down to 14th place, your mate Pat Thomas. I think he's leading his class, John.
Yeah, there's a great story about this car. Basically, his wife Sue brought it back across from the States for him, and Pat Thomas and the guys at Kelton Motors, who are more normally associated with preparing Lotuses, have done a cracking job. Little Tony has worked about 3 or 4 days a week on it for 7 months and brought that car up to tip-top condition, as everything that Pat does is. And Chris Porritt's jumped into that car for the second part of the race. Chris was meant to be driving one of the Porsche 962s that was involved in the accident with Oliver Matai yesterday. Chris is a Future Technologies project manager for Aston Martin.
Oh, and a spin there from the 81 car, the Chester brothers car.
That's the 15th car, 15th position, and second in class to that Pat Thomas car we were talking about. And just behind, and the leader was there. So was there a bit of argy and bargy? No, there wasn't. There was just a bit of too much right foot.
I think he just kept the tight line too much, didn't he? He got nowhere else to go, and then round it went.
Yeah, you spot on. Look, there it is there. Plays it out perfectly from the second camera angle. Great stuff on the replays. Talent in the truck work.
Look at the lovely ring of the
nice
tie.
tone-up. He has had some contact with someone at some stage. There's Martin Stretton then.
What time is Stretton doing now?
1:45 last time around, and it updates again, another 1:45.
Bunkum's times have dropped now. His best lap in this race has been 1:44.5. Now he's doing 1:47s. And the Salby, well, with Callum Lockie at the wheel now, that car is closing up. But there's still 27.3 seconds between them, with some 22 minutes to go, John.
But traffic, Andrew, you know, you can lose 3, 4, 5 seconds if you catch a whole gaggle of cars going into the complex.
Just for example, trying to do the math, as we say when we're in America.
There is the Pat Thomas car. That is Chris Porritt in that car now. He bet me that I wouldn't say his full title, so I've won that one. And Chris Porritt, who is a tremendously skilled endurance driver.
Just looking at the front of that car, do you remember when they ran in IMSA with the lobster claw on the front? Well, it was
creepy crawly cars as well.
Yeah, creepy crawly cars. The lobster claw was from a lobster restaurant, wasn't it?
It was indeed.
And they actually painted a bit of the lobster claws down on the front sides of the nose there. It looked absolutely fantastic.
That car, as I say, Chris Porritt, who has been tremendously successful for Aston in their GT3 and 4 programs. He has developed a way of driving fast and using very little fuel. I was talking to Graham Humphreys about him. He's got a lot of praise for young Chris, and if anyone knows good drivers, it is Graham Humphreys, and they've talked at length about getting through corners in a higher gear, changing up when you're going downhill and things like that. And at the Nürburgring, that does make a big difference, and Chris is transferring those skills into a very different area there as we look at the second place car with Callum Lockie at the wheel of that red, white and blue MPTI Nissan.
And the Pearman car now with Mike Wilds at the wheels, just done it. Fastest lap of the race.
Is this another spin? No, we've just about got away with that. It was very tight indeed, however. So with 20 minutes of the race to go, Chris Bunkum has really just got to control it from here. He's slightly having his lead eaten into by Callum Lockie, but he can't afford to lose his head here, Andrew.
No, he can't afford to have Lockie take 2.5 seconds a lap off him. He can't afford to have Lockie take a second a lap off him.
And in the pit lane, sad to say, is the 32 Bud Light Jaguar. The last time that Reaney is out in this car, he's going to dispose of it after this meeting, and that was the car that Justin was meant to be driving. It may well be that Nick Reaney has just decided to park that car up because he's done enough driving himself. He'll have been in that car for an hour and 10 minutes now.
Yeah, well, at Le Mans this year we saw some triple and quadruple stinting by the likes of Mitnish, didn't we?
3 hours and 36 minutes. Thank you very much indeed. Now, smoke from the Stretton car, was it?
Yes,
just a little bit.
I think so.
So that is a bit of a worry for Martin Stretton in third place. And Wildsy going side by side. Mike, come on, you don't want to be on the outside there, but he's pulled it off.
Well, I'm not absolutely sure. I think Mike's over 60 and he can still drive, can't he?
That was quite a brave manoeuvre, as the indicator on the car in front of the Stretton car is flashing right, but I think that's just maybe a clipped indicator stalk when they were changing drivers. No intention of turning right as they head through this complex. Martin just carves his way through. Did you notice how he just put the car there so that the driver in front could see him? He told him with the body language of the car where he was going to pass him, and made sure that Chris Porritt gave him the room to let him go through. He's almost a full lap behind Callum Lockie, who is coming up to put that lap on him now. And he will desperately want to stay away from losing that lap, because it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that we could get a quick safety car. We're wondering if one or two of the cars may need a quick splash of fuel at the end as well. Certainly seventh place Purdy car does, because he stopped way too early to go to the end. It's a shame, because that car was a real contender early on before his puncture on the right rear of that car. Stretton has impressed again this weekend. He's driven a tremendous array of machinery and jumps in and out of them, but that does not look a healthy motor.
Doesn't look good at all. Puffs of smoke like that, and I think they'll get darker and darker, and then I think we could see that car in real trouble. But still, there's just 17 minutes to go.
So here is the leader charging down the hanger straight. Chris Buncombe turns right into Stowe Corner in the silk-cut Jaguar, which remarkably still has such a huge following among British and European motorsport fans. The Dutch, the Scandinavians, all have an affinity with this car because their drivers drove in it, of course.
Yeah, I mean, he's a fine driver, Chris Buncombe. His father, of course, is a well-known mini racer way back.
Oh, yes.
And one of two brothers, brother Alex, who is racing in FIA GT4, I think, at the moment, in a Nissan. Here is the second place car, Callum Lockie, and Callum Lockie lapping at 1:46 at the moment.
That is not racing speed.
No.
And he was just about to go past Martin Stretton, who is nowhere in sight. No, that is not right. That is a sick Nissan.
Well, will he try and limp it home in true endurance style, John? I doubt it. He's going slower and slower. Another puff of smoke. I don't think that was the dust there. I think that might have been
no, that's not right, Andrew. There is Stretton. Now, Stretton was just ahead of him and in danger of losing a lap, and that's not a healthy car
No, that's
either.
not healthy either. He goes in a bit too deep, comes out wide, misses the apex. That's not like Martin Stretton.
No, I wonder if he's getting a little bit of his own oil on the back wheels.
Yeah, it's possible.
And it's all as he lifts off the throttle. That Chevy motor is belching some of its oil out through the tailpipes. I'm just hoping it's not going anywhere else and going to end up on the rear tyres there. So problems potentially for the second and third place cars. That would let the 39 car of David Hart in the 962, the From Air car, which we haven't seen for a while. And 54 for Lockie. That's way off his pace.
Way off his pace. Buncombe, meanwhile, has speeded up. He's back doing 1:45s, and that's now the quickest of the current runners. Now as Wallace goes a little bit quicker, 44.2 now.
Huge amount of heat coming out of the back of that Nissan, and looks to me as if Callum Lockie is stuck in a gear or has not the full complement.
I think you've read that right, John. I think that is the situation.
I'm going to give the credit to Barfy. He's looking at that, and in true racing driver fashion, he's looking at that, and you know what it is though, you'll see Lockie will adjust his driving style and he'll try and go wider into corners, keep the revs and the momentum up, but that car is not happy at all, and he certainly hasn't got the full complement, or it is stuck in maybe fourth or fifth gear.
Yeah, possibility.
It's not punching out of the corners at all, is it? The interesting thing is he's not quick down hanger straight, so I have a nasty feeling he's stuck probably in fourth rather than fifth, and he's not going to get the pull onto the straight either. He's still able to make moves. Just huge turbo lag. It'll be yeah, it's like winding up an elastic band. It's painfully slow to watch that car, and of course,
and turbocharged as well. Of course, it's
no natural torque on the engine. So, just a nightmare.
Little bit of bodywork.
So here's David Hart. Now, this is the fourth place man who could yet be third or second. He's lost a bit of bodywork.
Just taking off that flap.
His time's just gone down to 56.
Well, everyone's going slower now.
Well, maybe oil on the circuit, maybe people just being naturally more... Oh, oil flags out there. Look at the right of the picture, the the red and yellow striped flag being waved with gusto, and there's a huge line,
slick, yeah.
2 lines there that has been laid down on the circuit, one off the racing line and one right on it. I wonder if that is Martin Stretton's oil that we're starting to see there. There's the 97 car of Purdy, who we think may have to stop. This is the 4th place car of Hart, who's losing a little trim piece. Don't worry about that. That's just round the edge of the exhaust pipe.
And quite a lot of bits of rubbish. See it there beautifully from that picture. All the balled up rubber off the tyres, and you don't want to get out into that. That's what they call the marbles.
Well, it's getting very slippery out there. Everyone is struggling for grip at the moment as he goes past the 22 car of Bob Brooks in that Spice 89C. Now this is where the oil is. Look at how they're picking their way through, taking a bizarre line because the Purdy is trying to get round it. Here's Martin Stretton, still belching a bit of smoke.
Bit more smoke now.
Let's have a look at the back of this car. Is it laying it down?
I don't think so.
Vapour. It's not liquid. The amount that I'm seeing on the track there at Stowe is, and there's Bridge as well, got some down. So that's Stowe, entrance 2, Bridge, all the way through and into the complex.
There's a skating rink, this place now.
There's nothing worse either when you're tired. Everyone has dropped off as if it was wet. We're running wet weather times now, 15 seconds a lap slower than they were earlier. Martin Stretton takes a very late decision to come into the pit lane, so late that he's missed the pit entrance. This is the 3rd place car, and Hart is going to go through into 3rd place in 30 seconds time. Martin Stretton, Mighty Mouse, looking on for yet another podium as through goes the 2nd place car of Callum Lockie to add another lap to the deficit of this car. Now, I think that there is little urgency here on this car, and that tells you, I think, all you need to know.
Now, John, I'm just going to hand over now to Toby Noody, who's been done a fantastic job over 2 days, leaking all this coverage. I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. It's been absolutely great to work here at the Silverstone Classic. Great to do my first ever commentary with you after all those years, John Hindhaugh. And here's Toby Moody to take us to the end of the race together with John Hindhaugh.
Thank you, Andrew. Martin Stretton is trying to wave off some of the smoke and oil fumes. That it wasn't just coming out of the exhaust, was it at all? And that is such a shame. That was a definite podium finish for Martin. The straps are off, he's out. Not a podium for Martin this weekend.
Well, that's bad luck for this car, John. It's bad luck indeed, because the car caught fire last year, or the beginning of this year, so they've had more bad luck. That was the last moment decision to come into the pits.
Shall I go to the pit? No, okay, I will.
Last minute decision to come into the pits. Well, this race, John, has been turned absolutely on its head. It is absolutely thrilling to watch it from the back of the commentary box. Buncombe still leads. Not Sowerby. Lockie is obviously stuck in a high gear.
There he is.
Stretton is out. David Hart with the From A962 is now up to 3rd position, and all of a sudden Andy Wallace might be knocking on the door of the podium. That, of course, the Justin Law car at the beginning of the race that has had to stop twice, once for a puncture and once for speeding in the pit lane.
This is proper endurance racing. It might only be an hour and a half, but all of a sudden we've got real drama. If you sort of extended the timeline, this is like, hour 23 or 22 out of the 24 at Le Mans. Everybody's a little bit tired, and all of a sudden the problems are beginning to stack up. Callum Lockie is doing a tremendous job. Here is the 7th place car. Mike Wilde's at the wheel of the 962, and look at the muck and rubbish on that windscreen.
Honeycomb chassis, of course, in this car, built by Richard Lloyd. Bit of a lighter weight chassis, different front suspension, and of course that different tub underneath the bodywork. Of course, Richard Lloyd, he made the Canon 956 962 that was up for grabs here in an auction last night.
Wish I'd had the money. Wish I'd had the money.
Should we go and rob a bank, John? Should we drive it?
Several. Let's go down to the pit lane. Martin Stretton, I am sure, disappointed with a very unusual mechanical failure. Diana has the story.
Thanks very much, Colin. Assuming that words can't really quite describe how you must be feeling right at this moment.
No, it's a little disappointing, and I'm very sorry for the team, and obviously it's not good to have the car with smoke coming out.
What happened?
I had a water temperature, and the water temperature was staying at about 104, which is not really where it should be. And obviously it hasn't done it any good. It wasn't climbing any more than that. So I figured it was okay, and I didn't have very good communication on the radio. But the car was pretty difficult. It was understeering quite a lot anyway, but never mind. We nearly had third.
A late decision to come into the pits, though.
Very late. I was asking him on the radio, and I thought it was probably me, but until I got a clear signal, and really, it was better to come in then than junk the engine for the sake of walking. So I think it might have looked a bit last minute, and it was deliberate because it's better for the engine.
Okay, thanks for that, Martin.
Okay.
That is a classic quote from Mighty Mouse Martin Stretton. Better to come in rather than junk the engine for the sake of walking in. Fantastic.
Bit closer even if he stopped out on the far side of the circuit, John, than down at the Mulsanne corner, wouldn't it? Callum Lockie, interestingly enough, just passing one of the Advan cars, the black and red car. In the Advan car, I think that's another lightweight honeycomb chassis car, although I stand to be corrected on that one.
Was that the Simon Wright owned car, the number one machine, the all-one machine rather? That's the Steve Jones and Roger Green driven car. Roger Green from Evo magazine. And Steve Jones, who started that car, had come up through radicals, including driving with David Leslie, as so many people here have done. Six minutes and 30 seconds now to go, with Callum Lockie doing a great job in second place. He's not going to chase down Chris Bunkum, who is leading by a lap, and he's spun it! Oh, I've just put the curse on him. Callum is going to kick me from here to Silverstone Village.
Now the problem is, John, it's not stuck in gear, because if it was stuck in gear, he wouldn't have been able to pull out of that corner if it was stuck in fourth or fifth gear. Maybe we got it wrong, or maybe
it's just jumped out.
Maybe it's just jumped out of gear, and maybe he's got a full box now. Now that is Purdy behind him. He is
alone. Leader! Chris Bunkum after an over 5 minutes. This is like Jesus Pereira in 1990 in the Porsche in the last hour of the race. That is disaster. Heartbreak, and the race again gives us drama.
Right, therefore Sowerby and Lockie are going to be leading this race. The Lockie car in view is going to come into the lead of this race when it passes Bunkum's now stricken and stationary Jaguar, and there it is, and we've got a new leader, John. The Lockie car comes into the lead. Now then, in second position is now going to be David Hart. David Hart not in that yellow From A car because it's a Japanese Nissan. It's going to be the From A German Porsche of Hart behind. Now then, John, let's have a look at this replay. Now then.
Oh, that was nasty. That just got away from him, as if he would maybe gone a little too wide through the corner. Rob Barth is looking at that. Let's bring him, our driver expert, onto that. What do you think?
I think John, he just stayed too wide. Maybe if he wasn't in a higher gear, it would have been impossible for him to keep the racing line on the inside. So, but despite that, of course, he still does lead the race, and this is what happened to our leader.
Well, he'd obviously been slowing down because he had a huge lead. I'm not sure what had happened to that number 4 car before that. This is the JD Classic. Oh, and look, that is Jesus Pereira all over again. He's 962, ground to a halt in the last hour of Le Mans 1990, and he'd driven it right through the night. One of his driving partners had been injured in the earlier race. He had brought the Repsol money. He walked away from the car. Do you remember this?
I do.
At the Mulsanne car, it never looked back. Head in his hands while his helmet was still on, and Chris Bunkum has brought those terrible memories for me, which always bring a lump to my throat, because at that stage you don't want to see anybody have problems. And Callum Lockie leads. He's gone through in the last 4.5 minutes or thereabouts of the race. He's doing 47s, and the forlorn sight of the number 4 Silk-Cut Jaguar, not powered by the V12 but powered by 4 of our intrepid marshals.
Indeed. Well, what a shame for Bunkum. That is a sad and sorry sight. Well, now we're on board with Mike Wilds. Mike Wilds now coming through the field. He's in 6th position, and he's got a half a minute gap. Here is soon to be the 2nd position Porsche, and fair play to David Hart. He's about to pass the stricken Porsche. There he is. David Hart, doing the entire race on his own, John, is going to get on the podium in the yellow Porsche.
And it could well be Andy Wallace and the Justin Law car after 3 pit stops, including the please come in again for spinning your wheels, and I'm seeing as little about that as I dare, still going to be on the podium if they can get around, and they will do, because AWOL, Andy Wallace, will be coming across the line shortly, and indeed has done, and he'll be passing Chris Bunkum's stationary Jaguar in a moment.
Now there is
Wallace.
There is Andy Wallace, Andrea Wallace, is that what they call him in Italy down when he goes to Monza? I'm sure that they do, as he now comes on to the back straight. He now goes past the Bunkum car. Chris will be absolutely furious about that. He won't. Yes, you're right. He won't be angry because he's going to be absolutely bushed. He's been hanging on to that car for nearly an hour and 26 minutes. We've got 2 minutes remaining here at Silverstone in this hour-and-a-half race, and that's cruel luck. Don't forget, this car has had bad luck. It had a puncture earlier on in the race, and then when it came in to change its tyres, it spun its wheels. The officials took umbrage at that, and they gave him, Justin Law, that is, of course, a drive-through or stop-go penalty. Now then, that's the crew, of course, who are running the leading car.
Colin Bennett there that you saw in the centre of the frame, an immense amount of experience of running all type of cars. He was our technical director at Rockingham when we brought the AS cars over, and that man has forgotten more about motor racing than most of us ever knew, apart from the man who's standing in the back of our commentary box at the moment, who is Don Law. And I'm glad to see that he's here this weekend, hands dirty as ever, running the number 3 car, which looks like it's going to be 3rd in this race. Look at Colin's face, he is really worried.
Now the leader is behind the number 97 Nissan, so it's ironically a sister car that it goes past. Different rear wing configuration and different colour scheme, that goes without saying.
Look how slippery it is out there, Toby, now.
Oh yeah, very much so.
There's a lot of oil down there, and everyone is doing well to just really survive. Last lap, I reckon now, 40 seconds less than as they come across the line, and Callum Lockie's got to keep it together. A 45.4, that's his fastest lap for some time. He's got his head around whatever problem they had, whether it was a boost problem or a gearbox problem, and he now can stroke this home because he has 6 miles of an advantage between himself and the 2nd place car. 2 laps as he's much quicker since he spun that car.
Absolutely. Rob Bath just pointed out to me, John, that whatever was wrong with the car, it must have got itself out of that problem, as you hinted on. Maybe something mechanical, maybe something gearbox, and whatever it was, there was an invisible hammer that knocked it into full working order. Maybe he suffered the worst of the oil, but that didn't account for him going so slowly out of the corners.
Smiling Colin Bennett now as well.
There's Peter Sowerby on the right-hand side.
And yeah, and he's breathing a sigh of relief as well now.
Because, of course, he had some sort of a technical problem towards the end of the FIA Historic Formula 1 race that let Joachim Falk go through in the Brabham to be victorious. Half a lap remaining, John.
Well, as we come round to end what has undoubtedly been a hyper-successful 2 days of racing, we finished off with 90 minutes of the David Leslie Memorial Trophy. And how appropriate that the car that is going to take the inaugural running of this event is the NPTI car, the Nissan car that was developed by, just down the road, RML, who David Leslie, of course, is inextricably linked with, and it's a Scotsman at the wheel of the car in Callum Lockie who brings the car home. And I am just going to savour this moment and remember Fast Dave, DL, and Colin Bennett goes wild on the pit lane, and I'm just going to watch this Nissan on its closing down lap and wait to see Jane Leslie present the trophy later on. This is a very emotional moment for me.
Well, and David Leslie, of course, I worked alongside him with my other commentary, and he was a gentleman. He was a gentleman and more than a fast driver. Here is David Hart, and he's going to get, well, a second position. Not the fast at the beginning of the race, but he plugged away, he kept his cool, and David Hart is going to get second position in the 962.
On his own.
That is a big result on his own. Exactly, John, couldn't agree more. Now then, the Justin Law Andy Wallace car we expect to get third position, and here it is coming underneath the bridge. Oh, it could be Derek Warwick in that car, it could be Raul Bussell, it could be the 1,000 kilometres here in the late 80s.
Yes, and there will be a lot of people on the bank sides. We've already seen people with silk cut flags. It won the 1000k here in 1987, this car. Thank you, Don Law at the back of the box, who's come to watch this from our vantage point. Just woodcut to come through. Andy Wallace reunited with silk cut colours, and with Justin Law takes the third spot on the podium. This is a tremendously evocative sight for everyone. The silk cut flags will be waving again round the bank sides.
And for everybody, it's all been shared out quite nicely, hasn't it, John? We've got 3 different manufacturers as we look at Chris Buncombe on the side of the racetrack.
That's hard.
We've got 3 different manufacturers on the podium. We've got a Jaguar, we've got a Porsche, and we've got a we've got a Nissan, we've got a Porsche, and we've got a Jaguar. I think I might be a bit tired.
You're allowed, you're allowed. And doesn't that just sum up this type of Group C racing that we have been watching? But that the picture there of Chris Buncombe by the side of the road, that is so hard. And a great win for this car, and Callum Lockie bringing the car home under difficult circumstances. But you've got to feel, whoever you are in this race, you've got to feel for Chris Buncombe.
You've got to feel for Chris Buncombe. From the top, of course, it's the Nissan that's victorious, the yellow Porsche in second position, and third position for Law and Wallace. Let's have a quick rundown, shall we? So there you have your top 3. Don't forget Andy Purdy in the yellow Nissan. What could he have done without the puncture? The yellow-pink Porsche with Pearman and Wilds, clean run to 5th. Berridge with the Aston Martin, former Leslie car, of course, in 6th. Buncombe did actually get classified in 7th. Haddon, McKay, Ward, Edwards, a couple of drivers with the Spice, and the Argo. What a fantastic race over 90 minutes for the David Leslie Trophy. Fantastic racing. They celebrate down there. Callum Lockie celebrating with the crew.
You know what he just said there? I'll guarantee I know what he said there to Colin Bennett. I have no idea how I got that home and it held together.
Peter Sowerby running in to celebrate with Callum Lockie. I spoke to Callum before the meeting got underway on Friday, and he was just bouncing around that garage like a child on Christmas Day morning. So looking forward to getting... Oh, and this is a crew that will be over the moon. Dutchman David Hart. They will be absolutely up there on cloud 9. They were working hard on the Ferrari 512, and they've worked so hard here today with the Porsche. And we've got the winner with Diana Binks down there in the pits.
There's a lot of celebrating going down here. But Callum, if I could just interrupt you, obviously many congratulations, and very fitting that a Scot brings that car home for the David Leslie Trophy.
I hadn't thought of that, but yeah, perhaps it is. He was also a mate of mine, so here's to David, brilliant bloke.
Now that was some race, wasn't it, especially at the end?
Yeah, Martin Stretton's car, I believe, dropped a whole load of oil or water or whatever, and I so nearly went off several times, so I thought I'd just cool it down, keep P2 as a good place, and then suddenly it was P1, so brilliant.
And then a good drive by Peter. He's around somewhere. He's disappeared. We can't find him at the moment. No, he's not. Peter, if you could just come and have a quick word. Obviously, you've had a couple of disappointments yourself this weekend, but this must bring it all back for you.
No, actually, I've had a fantastic weekend because I won both the historic Formula 1 races. And this just caps the lot. It's just unbelievable. I think it's probably the first time one of these Nissans that should have won everywhere, including Le Mans, actually has won.
Okay, Well, many congratulations, guys.
Thank you to Peter for putting me in it, Colin Bennett and his team for a fantastic car, and Silverstone, the organisers, and the marshals. A big thank you. Brilliant. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you.
Well, Nissan Motorsports Europe down in Milton Keynes, they never quite cracked Le Mans, John. They went on a course with touring cars again with David Leslie, with the RML run car. The car, of course, was built at Didcot. Here, though, is Justin Law and Andy Wallace.
Andy Wallace wearing his RML, fireproofs there from the Mike Newton MG Lola that he won Le Mans in a couple of years ago. Graham Tyler, part of the RadioLeMans.com crew, in there reporting this weekend in an unexpected third position for them. Hard fought and really could have been a lot better but for that extra stop for the puncture, and then the ignominy of having to come back in for the wheel spinning on leaving the pit lane. Can't say enough about David Hart in second place. Singleton drive in a car that it was not renowned for being easy to pedal.
And of course, that David Hart garage, they've got the car in the main garage itself on the pit straight, but the crew, they're out in the back of a truck at the back of the paddock running the Ferrari 512.
Here's the podium then for race 21 of the weekend here at Silverstone. Value for money, I think so. In third place, nearest to us, Justin Law and Andy Wallace in the red, white and blue dedicated Mike Rose overalls. Second place on his own in the silver overalls on the far side, David Hart, and winning the David Leslie Memorial Trophy and being congratulated, all of our trophy winners, by David Leslie's widow Jane, who has been very particular about being here this weekend, hosting the memorial celebration on Thursday evening at the BRDC farm. She'll have a word with David Hart in second position in that Porsche. And the final act of the weekend will be Jane Leslie handing over the David Leslie Memorial Trophy to Callum Lockie and his partner Peter Sowerby, who put on a great show. Warm congratulations to the Scotsman first, and considered words, I'm sure, from Callum back to Jane there.
Well, it's a celebration of his life here this weekend at Silverstone, and what a race to celebrate the life of David Leslie. It really couldn't have got any better than that. Almost a shame that it only had to be an hour and a half, John. Maybe we could squeeze another 22 and a half hours another day.
Suits me, suits me. What a great end to a fantastic weekend, and the perpetual trophy that Jane has had made specially for this event that goes along with the series trophies as well. And the Saltire magically appears from inside. That is a class move. Well done, Jane.
Can we just hold the trophies up to the pictures, please?
Well, the photograph will be taken for the press, and everybody very, very happy indeed here this weekend. We've had 21 races, and we've had racing all the way. Fortunately, we've only had one small stoppage out of those 21 races. It's a testament to the quality of the driving that we've had here this weekend at Silverstone, and we've also had some excellent sport all the way through.
Well, that's it from Motors TV. We hope you've enjoyed all our live coverage here of the Silverstone Classic. It's been a fantastic 2 days, and the sun has shone for us as well. Well, we hope that you will join us again next year for this event. From myself and all of the commentary team, thank you very much. See you soon. Bye-bye.